we're back.
We are. I love when you say that. But you know why? Because what do we say? It's a happy place.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Happy Monday. So
I mean, I'm happy when I'm with my gorgeous girlfriend anywhere, anytime, any place.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, don't get too carried away. But
we need our breaks too.
We share a back fence, but it's like, we come together, we work together, we socialise together, and we just enjoy it. So, so Monday. So, we have
so how was your weekend?
I had a great weekend, but really relaxing.
Yeah.
I just chilled.
Any cooking at all?
No, but I was because our next guest, one might discuss a little bit about cooking. I thought Nick and I would share a few of our stories. One, very briefly, was with the new partner. I said to him one day, I feel like poached pears. And I'm not a great cook, you know it. And he goes, great, that sounds like fun. I went, no, like off I go, like, the toffee thing and poaching the pears, thinking of course, typical me, one of 8 kids. The doorbell rang, or I had to go and do it. I said, that'll take a while. Off I go. And I come back, and the wooden spoon is stuck to the bottom of the pot, so much so that he walked into the kitchen. I went, he lifted the pot upside down and couldn't get the spoon off. So it took me forever to get it off the pot. So I just said, sorry about that. So that was my last sort of foray into cooking, and I'm, as you know, I'm a basic cook, but I'm good at basic cooking.
Oh, you're a good cook, Di. No, and it's entertaining, and really, I sometimes think it doesn't matter so much.
What about you? You're kangaroo hop woman.
It brings people together, but it was funny, like this weekend, it was fun. It was, I love it how the tables have turned a bit, and it was my daughter said, Mum, come over for dinner, and my son was around. So it was the kids cooked dinner for their mum, and so it was just so great. It was a barbecue, but Harrison was with the barbecue, and Gabriella did the salad, and it was so great. And it was just sort of like, it's one of those things going, how I love it how times have changed from the years of like all these sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's weekly dinners, and now it's so joyous when they cook dinner. Anything. And you know what, the funny thing is too, is like also when I was leaving, my son Harrison's going, okay, now Mum, text me when you get home safely. I'm going,
were you drinking?
But I just think, isn't it great in life too, all of a sudden, like how the roles have changed there. But I mean, look, I think you're a pretty good cook. I'm more of a dessert person. I'm not and I'm...
Nicola forever, and as you all know, I've known her for 40 years. Ever since the day I met her, she brings these things called kangaroo hops. Did I call them that? Or
I think Di made them up.
I don't know why, but they're just chocolate with coconut, right?
And dates and a few things there.
And I always say, bring the kangaroo hops, Nicola. And everyone loves
coconut.
them. Yeah.
But the thing is, I make up my own recipes. Everything, no meal is ever the same.
You're
because
a real
I don't follow rules. That's why sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. I throw it all in and everything's different. But
it's like life.
It is. It's like you've got to have a variety of life. And I tell you who's probably had more variety of life is our next guest. So we are thrilled, and let me introduce you to Julie Goodwin. And so we're really, really thrilled to have you at our back fence. I think most of Australia would recognise Julie as the winner of Australia's very first MasterChef, and she returned later to MasterChef Kitchen in Fans and Favourites. Well, Julie sure has done a heck of a lot, from cookbooks to cooking schools to radio host, and even went into the South African jungle for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
That one.
I know. And she's a proud proud wife to Mick, a mum to her 3 sons, and a grandma to Delilah. Julie has also released a powerful and courageous memoir, Your Time Starts Now, which I listen to on audio because I like my walks, and it really, really moved me. And where she opens up in a deeply personal way about her experience with mental health. And Julie is an ambassador for the Big Blue Table. So there's so much to talk about, Julie. Your time starts now.
Yeah. Keep me up with a little trauma.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Julie, it's like you're hearing that intro. It's, you for the little time you've been on this earth, you've lived a huge life. And I have to honestly say, I was finishing your book on Audible on the weekend, and I had a friend sitting opposite me, and he said, "Are you okay?" And because I was howling, Yeah, I can almost feel it now.
Aw.
No, because it really triggered something in me in your book. It went. I was reverting from my head to my heart to my head to my heart, and all these emotions were flowing out of me. And I thought, wow, you were speaking it. Thank God it was your voice, but it really got to me, and I thought, anyone that reads this book, it's going to affect them, because everyone at some stage has something that happened in their lives that covers the spectrum of mental health. So really where to start with you, God knows where. But
My mum.
seriously, but
We're going to cover everything.
I just think it's a really good way to start, because I love the story. Nick and I chatted about your son going into high school and you moving into a whole new venture with MasterChef. Maybe just start with sort of how that came about.
Oh gosh, so we had moved from our little house just down the road from where I am now in Wyoming. And my boys were sort of getting bigger and we didn't have quite enough room for them. So we moved onto a block of land and we built a new house. And we lived in this funny little cottage while we built the house. It was sort of more of a shack. It didn't have much of anything. And you're meant to be there for 6 months while the house was built, but the house took 2 years. So it was all these weather events and all this stuff went wrong. And so we ended up living in this tiny little shack for a couple of years. And while we were there, I remember saying to Mick, we've really done it pretty tough. No luxuries, no heating. There was windows that didn't shut. We were on this damp floor. We were all in, like the boys were all in one room together and Mick and I were in the other room. There wasn't room for us to all sit around a table. It was squashy and cold and all the things. And so I said, when we move into this house, we're going to get Foxtel for the first time ever. And I said to him, you deserve to be able to watch whatever sport you want whenever you want. And so he was pretty excited by that prospect. And of course, we got Foxtel and I discovered the Lifestyle Food channel. So he never got to watch any sport at all because I was glued to Lifestyle Food. And
Well done, Julie.
Yeah.
That
Well,
old chestnut.
he kind of benefited from that too because I learned a few things from that. But I was watching the UK version of MasterChef and I loved it. And so when Australia came out with a contestant call, that's where I kind of thought, well, that's actually my best friend said, you've got to apply for this show. And I'm like, oh, it looks like fun. And long story short, I was a big, long process to apply and I kind of put it off. And in the end, she just said to me, my dearest friend, like you two, and she said to me, if you don't apply for this show, you're never allowed to talk to me about food again.
Oh, I love her.
Oh, I love that.
I love this friend.
Yeah. I can imagine you saying that.
Goes for it. I love it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. She muscled me into it, and now takes credit for the whole thing, obviously. But it was still great one. And that all sort of came to pass when the boys were in years 5, 6, and 7. So it was all around the time that my oldest was going to start high school that I got the call to say that I had an audition. And in all honesty, and this is, as you go through life, you recognise these moments that turn on the head of a pin. I didn't know when I applied that I would have to move out of my house for 5 months. I didn't know that I would have my phone taken away from me, that I wouldn't be sleeping in my own bed, that I wouldn't be allowed home on the weekends, that I'd only get 2 phone calls home a week. I didn't know any of that. And I can tell you with absolute sincerity that if I had known, I would never have applied. Because I just thought, I've got 3 little boys. I've got a business that my husband and I run out of our house, or out of an office just down the road by that point, but a tiny business that's just us. There's no way I can just pack up and leave. So if I'd have known, I never would have applied. So I'm glad I didn't know, because I'm glad that I applied. And throughout all the stuff that went on and having to leave my little boys in the hands of their father and my community, our whole lives changed. So.
And share that, if you don't mind, Julie, too. I think it's incredible that sliding doors moment also. you nearly didn't go on it because of, tell us, wasn't your son starting school? Tell us about that. I love in life how things can just change.
Oh, and legitimately on the smallest of things. So Joe was in sixth class, and he was moving into high school, and he had his own sort of stuff going on, Joey. And I'd never spoken about this publicly prior to writing my autobiography, but he was diagnosed with what they then called Asperger's. It's now ASD, but back then it was called Asperger's. And so he'd had his own pathway through primary school. He was absolutely nailing it, like beautiful human being, and everybody loved him. He was voted the school captain, so very beloved.
Like Mama.
Yes. Followed in the footsteps. But high school's a whole different kettle of fish. So he was going from a small primary school to a huge high school. And when the producers called me from MasterChef and said, we've received your application and the audition day is on this date. And I was at my computer, I looked up the date and I said, that's my son, my oldest son. It's his first day of high school. So that doesn't really work for me. Can I do a different date? And there was kind of this puzzled, no, that's the date.
Bad luck.
And so I said, well, I'm going to have to call you back. And I rang Mick and I said, if you're not asked to go and do this audition, but it's Joe's first day of high school. And he goes, well, let's ask Joe and see what he says. And so we did. I got home and I said, look, I've been invited to audition for a cooking competition, which is how I thought of it. I wasn't thinking it was going to be some bloody juggernaut television show. But there's this cooking competition.
For 5 months.
There's this cooking competition. They've asked me to go on audition, but, I said to him, it's your first day of high school, love, and, I think I'd really like to be there. I think I'd like to be able to walk you in and make sure you know where you're going and, make sure you know where everything is and make sure you're okay. And he looked at me completely deadpan and said, Mum, I'm begging you, go to the audition.
I bless him.
Isn't that beautiful?
So you had that support.
So that's what I did. But that is the moment where, because, if he'd have said to me, actually, Mum, I'm feeling a bit nervous and I'd like you to be there. It's a no-brainer, isn't it, right?
I get that.
And you probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. No. And it's incredible how life can just sort of change way.
Yeah.
And then how did that, then you go this juggernaut. And I was shocked too. I didn't know you actually shared rooms.
I knew none of
my
this.
gosh.
And I love MasterChef. I'm obsessed by MasterChef.
We've had a few people from reality shows and Married at First Sight and whatever, but this one here for months and they're all living in a room. But tell us, how was it for you?
Particularly when you thought it was just a cooking show and you'd go home at night and you were there for 5 months.
Yeah. And then and then how it changed your life, Julie.
Yeah, it's a very different production now, and we're talking 16 years ago, 17 years, nearly 17 years ago. It's a very different show now. So standards have changed. Contestant welfare has changed. I'm always careful to point that out and also that I wouldn't change a thing about it, because if it was a different experience, it might have had a different outcome. And I'm quite pleased with the outcome. So.
You're the winner. Winners are grinners.
We all are.
Whatever it was is what it was meant to be for me. But yeah, coming off the back of that and out into, my life again was quite a spin out. It changed a lot of things, and then it kind of didn't change a lot of things too. Like at the heart of it, all my friends are the same. I'm still in the same house that I lived in before I went in. My favourite things to do was still have a barbecue, or go around to my friends' places and watch the footy and order in a Thai takeaway. It's life at its heart is still the same, but the opportunities that came my way and what I was doing for a living, I was working in an IT business, which was my husband's career trajectory. I went into that with him because I gave up my career to have a family. My career was in youth work. And I sort of thought, well, maybe I'll go back to that, or maybe I'll, I've always wanted to write, always wanted to be a writer my whole life. And so I thought, we actually had a deal that when all the boys started school, I was going to take a year off and write a book. But of course, as they went back to school, we started a business. And once you've got a business, you've got a toddler. It needs all your attention. It needs all your time.
So we're gonna surmise MasterChef. Greatest high for you doing MasterChef.
Oh,
One of.
okay. One of my favourite moments during MasterChef was so George Calombaris. He never really ate very much of anything. He would just sort of pick at it and get a feel for it, and he never took a second mouthful of stuff. He was very particular, pretty hard to win over. And there was one challenge that was cupcakes, and it was really funny because when I'd lived in this cottage before going into MasterChef, we didn't have an oven, so I hadn't had an oven. So I'd only had it for a few months before I went in. I hadn't had an oven for 2 years, so I hadn't baked cupcakes, you know. But everyone was saying, "Oh, Julie's going to win this. She's the mum," and it's like, you know, I was the the chubby housewife type who everyone's like, "Oh, cupcakes," you know. I'm not a baker, you know.
That's the only thing I would have won is cupcakes.
But anyway, I just I'll give it a go, and that was lemon divas, you know. So I made these lemon divas, and George came by, and because at the end of all the challenges, they come and have a little taste while things are hot and all that sort of stuff. And he came by and he cut one of the leftovers, not the presentation one, into quarters so that he and George and Gary could all have a little taster, and so they all came and they ate a quarter, and as they were walking away, George spun around and he grabbed the leftover quarter and ate it.
Wow.
Yes. So what's in a lemon diva? Why is it so good?
It's got a lot of lemon zest in the batter. It's got lemon juice in the icing. I decorated.
I think it's Julie's magic.
Was there licorice all sorts or something?
Yeah, so you know how licorice all sorts of the different colours. So I carved the yellow slices and the green slices out, and I carved with a Mickey knife little lemon slices and little leaves, and that's what I decorated it with.
Oh, you're so creative.
I know. Our producer's going, "Oh my God!"
Wow.
Over here. So okay.
Actually, I feel like a cake after this. We've got one down the road, haven't we? That beautiful cake shop.
Give me another high moment where we're all going to rock and roll with you.
Well, the absolute highlight, the ultimate highlight of that was when my family came. It was
that. They left it to the. Do you know what was weird reading that? Because Nicholas read it too. Like when they kept the family outside, it annoyed me that they've changed that now. They won, and their family was still outside. Then they brought them in, and that annoyed me.
But I loved it how they played tricks on you too, because you didn't know that Mick was coming as well, and you actually were worried about him.
Yeah.
And so it was that surprise factor. And I actually, before having you on too, I actually watched the final again of you winning the whole thing, just to sort of relive that moment and sort of see the joy. And how was that for you when you actually were you were announced,
you
were Poe, and you were the winner? How was it?
It was so surreal. I felt over the 3 days that they filmed that finale, I felt like I was underwater. Like I couldn't quite hear things, and I felt like my voice was blah, blah, blah. Like everything was very odd. And I, through all the therapy I've done since, I was probably in a dissociative state for most of it. And the whole time I was hoping that my family would come. So they'd cut off contact with the families a few days before. They said, "You guys need to focus, no more contact." And I understood afterwards it's because they were making arrangements to bring the families down. And I had a fervent hope that would be the case, and Poe and I were talking about it and saying, "Oh, maybe we're not allowed to talk to them because they're going to bring them." And so throughout that whole 3 days, I kept waiting for them to appear. Oh, it's the last episode. They're going to bring them. They're going to bring them for this challenge. They're going to bring them for and the very last thing they were doing was reading out the scores. And so she and I, and we're still, great mates, Poe and I, but she and I were like, "What's happening? How come? Why haven't they brought them in?" And and they started reading the scores. So for that whole thing, I'm like a stunned mullet, thinking, where are my boys? And they read the scores, and it wasn't until Sarah Wilson, who was the beautiful host of that season, it's the only season that ever had a host.
Yes.
Yeah.
She said, "There's someone here to see you."
Oh.
And I'll never forget, I heard Poe say, "Jules, it's what you wanted." And
you're going to bring tears again.
Seriously.
And
that's when it was real.
Actually, while you're teary about the family coming, we have to bring it to the fore, Nicola, about Julie's grandmother's 90th birthday and how Mick bought the van.
Yeah, exactly. We're always sort of saying how we're all in love with Mick. You know, like that. He's been by your
Share
side,
that
your
story.
husband, through thick and thin.
Oh,
you
God.
know.
They gave you escape
But
card.
that's a bit later on. But you know,
Tell us,
Yeah, well,
tell us about that. It's a great story.
this probably falls under the category of too much information. But,
no, we like TMI.
early in the piece, it was my nan's 90th birthday, and we were all locked away in this MasterChef house. We had no access to our families. My mum got in touch with the production and said it's her grandmother's 90th. She's in the nursing home. We're having a celebration. We're coming to get her and take her to the party. And they're like,
love it.
That's not how this works. Anyway, my whole family campaigned, and I campaigned to be allowed out to go to this party. And so they said, all right, we will bring her, like in a MasterChef van.
It's like a prisoner.
Isn't it? I know.
100%. Well, actually, Mick had said,
Really?
I wish you were in prison because at least then I'd get conjugal visits. So they put me in this van and they said, she can come for a couple of hours. And Mum said, it's only going to go for a couple of hours. She's 90. So we turned up to this party. And
I love your mum.
it was beautiful. And Nan was so happy to see me. And she was watching. Well, no, I think it had only just started on air at that point, or maybe it hadn't quite started, but she was so excited that I was doing what I was doing. And we were having cake, and Mick just said, listen, I've brought some clothes for you. Come out to the van and you can go through and pick what you want. So we're driving a Chrysler at that point, big family van, and all the seats would fold down in the back. And he's opened the sliding door in the back of the van, and all the seats are folded down, and there's a mattress and pillows and a Dina. And he's like, get in the van.
That's hysterical.
I know. And my grandmother's 90th in the car park of the nursing home. We locked the doors.
That is just gold, isn't it? What do they say? If it's a rockin', don't come and knock it.
I love it. What does Kathy Lett call those vans?
The
shag and wagon.
The shag and wagon.
And then you went back to your grandmother's night.
All a little bit sweaty and
yeah, trying to blow out the candle.
Oh, it's such a great story.
That is hysterical.
Hair everywhere.
I think you nailed it. I think that's one of the highlights too. And I tell you what,
beautiful.
it gives us a little bit of insight into sort of like your loving rock husband that you've had by your side, Mick, and also so you've won it, and then you're happy, and you win like $100,000 and a book deal, and then incredible how life. And what were some of the other then sort of jobs and things that sort of happened from there, Julie?
The day after the finale was recorded, I was offered a job with the Australian Women's Weekly. That's
iconic.
Huge.
Yeah.
And this is literally the day after it went. So I was still so exhausted. I was still had a body full of adrenaline that was ebbing out of me. It was so surreal, and I mean, you talk about imposter syndrome. I'm just like, whoa.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, I mean, it was only 12 days from it being recorded to it going to air. So again, very different to now. 12 days, no, it was 2.5 weeks, 19 days. And so it was all a blur, it was all a blur. And so the Women's Weekly offered me a job, which of course I said yes to. I mean, I'm not insane. Well, except for that time. We come to that.
Well, now I think about it.
I think you can say that.
Actually, yeah. I could joke about it because,
Yeah.
And then,
But it opened many doors for you, ultimately.
Many doors.
Yes.
Like there were endorsement deals, and there was, all kinds of stuff, all different TV shows and opportunities. And it was such a whirlwind that it's actually, a lot of it I only came back to me when I actually went back to write my book and looked at my calendar. Wow. And I looked at my calendar and went, holy crap.
Yeah.
No wonder I don't remember much of it. It was far too much for anyone to process. But yeah, it was wild, and it
Tell
was
me,
beautiful.
you talk about processing just then. You just used the word processing.
Yeah.
My question to you is, like, how did you process being a well-known identity? Because you came back out of that house after being there for 5 months. Ultimately, yes, you must have been a different person. And your world, yes, you had the substance of Mick and the kids and your community. But beyond that, you were, I mean, like it was the first MasterChef. You were revered around the country.
Well, I wasn't revered around the country. I was known around the country. Not everyone
You
revered
were.
me. It was pretty
Well, that's life,
controversial.
isn't it? But how did you cope with that?
That was really
Ultimately?
hard. You know, and I think most people, not everyone, but I think a lot of people live their lives in a way that doesn't invite conflict, you know, especially, you know, if you're sort of a people pleaser and you like things to be sort of nice, you know, like people who like you live your life in a way that doesn't invite drama, you know. And of course, I've lived my life in a way that didn't have social media in it. Like, we didn't have
Right.
that kind of
No.
heightened sense of everyone's got an opinion on everything. So to come out of MasterChef and find that all these opinions from people who didn't know me, and misinformation and stuff that was being said, that I
It'd be
found
hard.
it was wild, like to be criticized and hated on and all this sort of stuff, and a lot of love as well, but as we all know, you know, your
true.
employer can say 20 things to you about what a great job you're doing and have one little area of improvement. That's all you can think about. It's
Yeah.
the same when you're getting all this sort of love through forums and written letters. People were still writing letters back then. But it's the criticisms that stick, and that you want to respond to, and that you want to justify, and that really burrow in. So I had to learn how to take that on board and how to grow a bit of a thick skin. And so having that support around me, my people around me, my friends, my family, Mick, my children, to just hold me up through that, that was survival. They were
That's
survival.
beautiful, especially when it's
Yes.
literally nearly like an overnight success, you know, like
It's
that
true.
from years of, you know, you weren't even, you know, in the fame, whereas a lot of people have sort of built their way up and, you know, and they get, you know, they have to have that. But for you, sort of like this overnight sort of success, and then the good and bad that sort of, you know, come with it. I, you know, can't even imagine what that's like, you know. And then, you know, you, as you sort of said earlier in the book too, when you have had sort of suffered from some mental illness from the early days through, combining all this on top, and you don't even realise what it is. It's hard enough if you haven't had that. But just also tell us some of the things, like and then we'll go into other things. But I've got to know a little bit about going to the jungle with Julia Morris and Dr. Chris Brown and that. How was that in South Africa? You know?
That was so cool, actually. Like, physically a demanding thing to do, but it was actually mentally a lot less difficult than MasterChef was. But I went in as an intruder, so I went in a couple of weeks after it had started, and I was meant to go in straight away, only a few days after it started, and they got me to South Africa and held me there. But I mean, held me there. They held me in a wildlife park lodge. So I got to go on all these safaris and see all this stuff. So it was actually, and I was alone. I was alone there. My family wasn't there. I was in a place by myself. I went out on these safaris with just the tourists that were moving in and out of the park. And it was it was a spiritual time. It really was. It was awe-inspiring. And then, of course, they came and got me in a van, which they'd wrapped the windows in black plastic, and they put a blindfold on me and took me off to this camp. So it went from being this surreal spiritual experience to a surreal, am I being kidnapped experience? And I went into the jungle, and my first night was with Freddie Flintoff, who is, of course, the cricketer. And can I tell you, he is one of the funniest human beings I've ever met. I laughed so hard because we spent the whole night in a cave together, this cave, and
So
I spent the whole night
isn't it?
frightened that I was going to have rat strap dropped on me or something, because I watched a few clips from the other shows. But this, you know, first season again, I didn't know how it was going to be filmed or play out. I'd never laughed so hard in my whole life, and I loved him. I love him. He is a beautiful human being. And so I went into the jungle with him, and I got to meet all these people that I'd only ever seen on TV myself. I got to spend those weeks with Andrew Daddo and with Joel Creasy and Chrissy Swan and with Merv
That'd be
Hughes and Barry
hilarious.
Hall. Look, it was an absolute uproar, and of course some of the other guys who were sort of newer on TV. It was fantastic, and I mean, boredom was the biggest problem there. Boredom and hygiene, I had to go up to the talkie a few times and say, "You guys, we need hot water. We need more fresh water. We need to wash these chopping boards. I'm cutting up food on a piece of old tree, raw meat. Somebody's going to die. Seriously, someone's going to die here." So again, being on the first season, we were the guinea pigs.
Amazing experience. We've got so much to get through, Julie. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I don't even know where to start. We've got. I really want to, because we are going to have a big chat about the Big Blue Table, supporting Beyond Blue. But I'd like to bring to the fore about something that occurred, coming back to being a public figure. You were caught drink driving. Tell us about that experience and where that took you, and can you also bring into that like a long painful cycle of quitting and relapsing back into alcohol, using it like a band-aid in your life?
Yeah, I want to be careful to separate that instance with my complete breakdown, which was a couple of years later, because those things have been conflated in a lot of media. I still get a lot of online shame over that, and I will for the rest of my life. And a lot of the criticism that I get is that I used my mental health, and often when I speak out about mental health, people will say, "You used that as an excuse when you got caught for DUI." I want to be clear, I never mentioned it. It wasn't brought up. My mental health never came into it. I copped that. I did the wrong thing. And I still, as you're talking to me now, my body is flooded with adrenaline. I'm cold and hot in my face and my hands. I'm having a pure physical response. I'm still getting help to try and work through the shame of that. Okay, so I did not take that lightly. I did not fob it off. I took my punishment. I never appealed it. And I'm still working on that. And I'm still working on what got me to the point where I made that decision on that night. I've never sought any sympathy for it. I have none for myself. If I can please be clear about that, I hate talking about it because it's so painful, and it is still painful. And I understand what I could have done to someone else's life in that moment.
Yeah. And Julie, let me say too is that it's also it's so difficult with and it's part of the whole sort of like loop. What we want to sort of share with you and talk further is if with addictions, mental health issues, and I really want to praise you for being so courageous in speaking out.
Hugely.
And you help so many people because you certainly
and save lives
and save lives and tried so hard, and you've gone sort of to rehab and to centres like that to get assistance in many different areas. And can you tell us about like when you've like you've actually gone into, rehab or to get some support, what that was like and what were the things that you found helped you and maybe can help others?
And things that triggered it too,
Oh, look, it's really interesting to me actually that when I put out this autobiography, I actually expected there to be a lot more talk around alcohol. I kind of thought that might be one of the things that people latch onto as something that's interesting. And so it interests me that it's not been more spoken about. And I think that perhaps it's because it's hard to talk about when you're worried about yourself.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
I think that there might be a lot of people who don't want to have that conversation and aren't ready for that conversation. And it's not up to me to tell anyone that they need to be having that conversation, but it's just a point of interest to me that I would have thought that would be one of the big brouhaha points of, that the media would pick up on and want to run with, and they haven't. But I think it's important, and I think that we need to be talking more about it. And so my addiction to alcohol really has been there for a long, long time. And I do talk in the book about the traumas that have led to that. Um, I've developed a huge understanding of addiction and what drives addiction, and through all my stays in hospital. And it's still often reported that I had a stay in a mental health facility. I was hospitalised 5 times during those couple of years, all of them throughout that COVID sort of lockdown period, which is why it all went under the radar. If you're going to disappear from your life during a pandemic, is a great time to do it. Nobody notices.
Timed that well.
Absolutely. Love
that. It made it hard to be in those facilities because, couldn't have visitors after the first one and all that sort of thing. But I ended up in a rehab rather than a psych unit because I found that psych units won't deal with addiction. And then I found that a rehab won't deal with your psychological issues. So I did not find a place that would treat it holistically. Okay, so addictions don't happen in isolation from psychological problems. They just don't. I call it the theory of not all dogs are German Shepherds, right? So all German Shepherds are dogs, not all dogs are German Shepherds.
Wow, that's good way of saying it too, isn't it? And you're saying those addictions start all those from trauma,
Not everyone who's had a trauma ends up with an addiction, but everyone with an addiction has had a trauma. Yep. And I will go to my grave defending that position.
Agreed.
Whether or not they know it or recognise it, everybody with an addiction has a trauma. And I every therapist I've spoken to agrees with me on that. So I think that's helped me to approach that with a lot more compassion, acknowledging that my use of alcohol was more than just a relaxation. It became a crutch. It became something I actually couldn't moderate by myself, and that's when I decided I needed to get help. It was take that medicine and go through those really, really hard yards. It's the hardest thing I've ever done is quit drinking. It was either go through that or go through something much harder, which is losing my family. And I guess I just reached the point that I wasn't prepared to do that. I would love to be able to say that when I was publicly shamed for the thing that I did, that was my rock bottom. Unfortunately, I had a lot of work to do before I was able to get to a point where I could stop. And I'm over 4 years down the track from that. And it's not a straight line. Mental health is not a straight line. Recovery from addiction. To some people it is. To some people they stop and that's the end of that. But for many, many, and I have encountered now hundreds and hundreds of people who are walking this path, and I seek them out too. I seek to understand how people end up where they are. My husband and I have always worked with marginalised people. That's how we met when we were 18 years old. That's how
sweethearts too. You and Mick were childhood sweethearts. What would you say to sort of, because we had like Lisa Greenberg and her things on sobriety, and she talks about how she went to actually end her life with her drinking because it was just so much shame, and she literally couldn't stop and just thought it'd be better sort of without it. And you, if you don't mind, sort of sharing that story when kindness of strangers actually saved you. Can you share that to help others?
Yeah, I can, and I do. It's not an easy subject, but it came from that. Well, it's illness, right? And it's complete and utter despair. So it's reaching a point of truly believing that the people that I love are going to be better off if I just fuck off. That was my honest belief. And that belief comes from a terrible downward spiral. It comes from illness and your brain giving you the wrong messages, and and that the numbness that comes with alcohol not doing that anymore for you, not working anymore, and just thinking that's really the only logical thing left. So it's not the only logical thing left. There are so many ways back to the light, but in those moments you can't see them. Um, so I had made that decision, and I went for a walk, and I had a plan, and I was just um, sitting at the waterfront, just uh, trying to get the courage up really to execute that plan. And a young couple walked by, and the woman saw that I was in distress, and she said, "Are you all right?" And I said I was, and she said, "You look like you need a hug," and she gave me a hug, and they
Bless
left.
her.
And then a few minutes later, they came back and just sat down and said,
Angels.
"I said we actually feel like you're somebody who needs a bit of company right now." And so they sat down, and they would not go away, which kind of put a bit of a cramp in my style, if you know what I mean. And they just talked to me, they just chatted. Nothing deep. They didn't ask me anything.
Good.
We just chatted. And for a couple of hours, I think it must have been. And by the end of that, I was on the other side of that moment,
Oh,
And
Julie.
yeah.
Wow,
No.
you know what?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
That's really
yeah.
courageous. And I'm sorry,
Incredible,
resharing it
Julie.
because it takes you back there, and I feel bad asking you because it's,
No,
you're
I
feeling
think
bad, but
ultimately,
help.
sharing this story
Sharing it-
is helping others.
It does. It
They're
helps
not
so
alone.
many others. And you know what? There were so many different things that got me there. But also there's so many things about that too. Is when you're sort of saying in the book that they're just talking about the simple things and their kids and their dog. And to me, it's like the small things. But they're they're everything in life, aren't they?
Yeah.
When sometimes you go seeking and you've had the fame and people go seeking for all this external stuff. And when it's come to the crunch and then they're just talking about that and then that changed it for you. And and you know,
It's
you
good
didn't
to
know.
step up to the mark and actually, if you think it, speak it. Don't hold
Yes.
back. Like this couple coming back to you went,
Oh,
I think we need to spend some
exhibited
time.
so much courage in that moment.
Yes.
So, you think, oh, well, if I saw someone in that state, I would too. They exhibited a lot of vulnerability and a lot of courage, because if you think about yourself walking past someone crying on a park bench, so many of us think, oh gosh, I hope they're okay, but I don't want to interfere. I'm going to mind my own business. They probably don't want to be interrupted. They might be embarrassed if I call them out on it. They might be angry. There's so many thoughts that interfere with that actually turning around and coming back. And that might account for the few minutes until they did come back, because they might have been gathering the courage to do that. But, if we can add into that litany of, I don't want to embarrass someone, I don't want to inconvenience someone, I want to be polite. If we can add into that, this may be my moment.
Yeah, and you know what? They
Well
saved
said,
your
Julie.
life then, as you sort of say them,
Beautiful.
you sort of thank them, and for your family there, and then gorgeous Mick is the one who's look, I can't handle this, on your own. But when you had your radio show as well, and you had a program, I loved it because you never know what that one message is with sort of someone that when you're telling a story, and you had a Thankful Thursday, and tell what happened when that person came to you. Was it in the rehab or one of the centres there, and sort of tapped you on the shoulder and. What did they say?
She was one of the beautiful women who was in one of the psych units with me when I was in there, and she said that she had made that decision. She was at that point that her family was going to be better off if she took herself out of the equation, and she had picked out a tree that she was going to run her car into. And that she got into her car that she'd picked up from the mechanic, and the mechanic had changed the radio station from what she normally listened to.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
And on our show, we were doing Thankful Thursday, which is where, no matter what's going on, we're going to find one thing to be grateful for.
Brilliant.
And she drove past the tree.
Wow.
But can I tell you the most powerful message that's come to me from sharing that story, my story, was from somebody who just simply said to me, I've been so angry with my mother for so many years, and I think you've just given me some insight into her last moments.
Wow.
So I'm devastated for her. Devastated for her. But if that gives her a little piece that maybe she can let go, maybe of a bit of anger, and maybe find a little bit of understanding of where her mother was in that moment, I wish those people had been there for her mum.
Yeah, I get that.
Yes,
I hear you,
yeah.
100%.
Every single story, every single thing you share can touch sort of someone, and it's sometimes you never ever know.
You don't know someone's
and so
story.
It's so hard that when you're going through this and the pain, you're feeling again. But wow, and we hope with our podcast too, it helps to share some more stories.
Do you know what's something,
no doubt.
Julie? Something Nicola and I talk a lot about is often when you're reaching the dark night of the soul, like that moment where you are, I guess a lot of people refer to as rock bottom. It's fascinating how many people think, oh my God, I'm here now, that's it. And yet sometimes that can be a precipice for the most remarkable change in your life coming out the other side. And I think you use the phrase, seeing the light again. Like sometimes you've got to sit in that and go, okay, I've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And it might be triggered by someone. Can I sit with you? Or it might be triggered by the radio station, or it could be triggered by a friend in your life. Who knows? But believe that coming out the other side, when you do see that little glimmer of hope of light, that it's that's where the gold, that's where the juice of life lies. And I think for anyone listening right now, if you're feeling low or you have a friend that's in, obviously, in a very suffering mental illness, remember to speak to someone. Step out of that circle of darkness in the clouds. Ring someone, text someone, be brave, because the bulk globally of suicides in the world, half of them, they never spoke to, the people around them never knew.
No, it might be the hardest thing you ever do, but it will be the most important thing you ever do. There is a way through it. There is a way through it. Whoever is in that space, and whether you are in the depths of an addiction that you do not believe you can ever get out of, okay, or whether you are in the depths of depression that you cannot see a way out of, or whether your anxiety is feeding you lies and giving you a heart rate that you think is going to kill you, I promise you, there is a way out. There is a way through. You've got to hold out your hand and let somebody grasp it. You've got to do that. There is a way through. And life is spectacular.
Oh. And you know what? That's coming from someone who's hit rock bottom not once, not twice.
I don't think there's a dryer in the studio right now.
And as you know, we're a work in progress to the day we die. But just to hear that is so beautiful. What do you say though? Because so many people go, I don't know what to say to them. We might sort of know someone who's completely spiraling so much, and you want to help, and you've tried, and they've pushed you away. What do you suggest to do? Because so that work has to kind of come from them within themselves.
And that's a great question, because we all want to do the "Are you okay" day, but what do you do when someone goes, "Actually, I'm not"?
Yeah. Yes. See, what do you do?
Don't
what do
be
you say?
afraid to say, I'm not qualified to help you with this, but I'm here.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. Can we go together and find out? Do you want me to look for a practical solution to this, or do you want me just to sit with you in it for a little while?
Well, that couple did with you, Julie.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, they just sat with you.
This is gold. This is really good information, because so many people genuinely want to help, and they don't know what to say or do.
And you're frightened if I say the wrong thing, I might send them off.
They're going to lose.
It's human nature too.
Exactly, but it's so important. And your tips from someone who's walked the path so many times.
The way to do it is you have to be a little bit vulnerable yourself. You have to admit that you don't know everything, and be prepared to ask a question. I want to do the right thing for you. Is that a practical solution? Is it for me to listen to you vent? Is it for me to offer you advice? Is it a hug? Do you do hugs? Can I hug you right now? Is there someone I can call? Is there, or do you just want me to sit down next to you on the floor in silence? I don't have to be up against you. I can just sit here with you. And
that's
you can
beautiful.
also, and if somebody says just leave me alone, you then have to be vulnerable enough and brave enough to say, I'm not comfortable to leave you right alone right now. So I'll just be over here in this other corner, not making a noise and not looking at you, but I'm not going to leave you alone.
And the
Wonderful tips.
irony
Thank
in all
you
of
for that,
this,
Julie.
the irony in all of this is you're the brave one if you speak to someone. You are the brave one if you speak your truth.
Yeah. Yep.
It
requires
no
bravery
shame.
all around.
It does.
It does from
but
everybody.
a lot of people that hide it and keep it, within forever, they live and die with it. But if you speak out, you're brave.
Well, what do
And
you
it's
say?
to be honoured.
Yeah. Well, what do you say to sort of someone then? Because on the exterior, how are you? Fine,
Yes,
fine,
fine.
and you've probably done it yourself.
Yeah.
When they're doing a TV show and
Yes.
rocking up to
Oh,
work.
yeah.
But
The one word I
you're
can't
crumbling
stand.
inside. So what would you say? And there's a lot of people who are listening who are like that.
Oh, 100%.
And then they feel
I'm like that.
Yeah, and then you feel the guilt because you think, why should I complain? Because there's people in
Yes.
Africa dying, and there's this,
Exactly,
I've got this, so
comparing.
I shouldn't
Oh,
as
the
well.
old first world problem.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sort of stuff too.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest to that people on the exterior, so you don't even know, but are dying inside?
Well, what I would say is that this is something to think about, because if you are always the person that people come to, if you're the strong one, if you're the one who gets things done and who makes everything okay and who helps everybody else, it's near impossible. If that's your schema, if that's what you have inside of you and that's who you are to yourself, it's almost impossible to say, actually, I need a hand. So I challenge anyone who identifies as always people pleasing, smoothing things over, keeping everyone, taking on all the extra jobs because other people are overwhelmed, the helper. I challenge you to sometimes say, I actually need a hand. Because what I would say to you is, if you are that strong, that capable all the time on the face of it, you're actually not a very safe space for other people who might need to talk, because they're going to look at you and go, oh God, I can't tell Di that I'm struggling. Look at her. She's so capable. She'll never understand. So what you do is you're shutting down conversations for other people. So I would challenge you to sort of say, if you open up and be a bit vulnerable and say, you know what, guys, I'm the one who's worked back 3 nights this week to cover off this excess, and I'm not doing that anymore. I'm overwhelmed.
Boundaries.
Learn the language.
Yes.
Put the boundaries in place. Sometimes you put boundaries down, you think you're being so tough, and it turns out they weren't boundaries at all, that nobody actually expected it of you.
I love hearing that.
So true.
We always sort of said that too from our generation of people
true.
pleasers too. We were a bit more sort of like, no, we'll do this and whatever. And now actually, one of our, favourite words is no, and we sort of said, and you can say it also in a nice way, or I'm not available for this, or it doesn't work for me, or whatever.
And if you're
be
not
honest.
comfortable, I love Jane Fonda, no is a complete sentence,
Oh, we
but
do
not
too,
everyone's comfortable doing that, and I'm
that's
not.
true.
Yes.
I like to provide a little soft cushioning around it, but it's become harder cushioning as the years go by. So it's instead of I can't do that because I've got X, Y, and Z on, I might just say, look, I'm not available for that.
Yes.
Because otherwise, you find if you say I'm not available that day, they'll go, oh, I'm open. It can be any day. So I just
very
say, I'm
Well,
not
we're
available.
glad that you're available for us at Over the Back Fence,
Very
that's for sure.
fortunate.
And can you tell us about the Big Blue Table, because you're an ambassador, and what that's about and how we can all get involved?
And Beyond Blue that we
yes.
love.
We do.
Well, Beyond Blue is an organisation that provides free mental health care for anybody who picks up the phone. So that's what the funding is for. It funds counsellors and all sorts of resources for people struggling. And that is literally a life-saving thing. There are people who don't want to go to a colleague, a family member, a friend. There are people who their only outlet, people who don't have a colleague or a friend or family. Their only outlet is to pick up the phone, and that anonymity can be what gets them across the line to seek help. So it's crucial life-saving work. The Big Blue Table is their major fundraiser of the year, but it's also to inspire people to have that conversation. So if you register, you get all these beautiful conversation starters and stuff. And just as a little illustration of how it works is it invites workplaces, families, friends, community groups to get together, have a meal. It's a fundraiser, but it's a conversation starter. So I had this and I invited my parents. I was down the South Coast. I had a whole lot of friends over. I invited my parents to come, and my mum is awesome. Mum and dad are awesome. They're beautiful people.
No
They're
doubt.
really progressive. They take things on board. Mum was in a state before this thing started. She was helping me set the table, and she said, Julie, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if I can talk about all this emotional stuff,
Yes, yeah.
And I just
It's also
said,
that
"Julie,
era
Yeah,
too.
very much
oh,
so.
totally that era.
Yeah,
We don't talk about that.
I get that. Yeah.
I just said to her, that's cool, Mum. You don't have to. Don't join in. Just have the high tea. Have a cuppa. Have a
have a
scone.
Yeah, have a scone.
And you don't have to join in. And
A lemon diva.
Yeah, no, I'm going to
if
have
you're
one of those.
uncomfortable, you can go. And she goes, and I don't know how Dad will be with all this.
I love
My
it.
parents
Can't you hear it?
sat
Can't
down.
you? Yeah.
They sat down, and when the conversation wandered off from these little conversations, and they're graded, so it can be real easy ones, down to the quite harder ones, as to what keeps you awake at night and what would stop you from, asking this question, from real easy ones. What's your favourite board game? It just gets you
I
going.
actually love it.
I love
I
that.
think it's so good.
It's so good conversations,
do
having
it.
food. Well, I
brilliant.
think we all can do it too. So
We all can do it.
yeah, so
My parents, those boomers,
yeah.
got into it, and even Dad. I was so proud
I
of the cuddly
love that.
speech that they're like, well, Dad said, well, you know what? There is some stuff from my childhood that I think might still be relevant in the way I behave today.
What? Oh,
Whoa. And it was so
Yes,
transformative.
boom. Yeah.
Yeah, boom.
Yes, boom.
go Dad.
Go, Dad.
That is what the Big Blue Table's about. And so I would say to people, even if you're not comfortable doing the fundraising side of it, stick the box on the table that people can drop their coins in or tap their card. You don't have to talk about it, but talk about this.
I love
Talk
it.
about it.
It's what a
Absolutely love
great
it.
way of doing
Yeah.
it, but a great way of also initiating different conversations, because it's sort
Yeah.
of there of asking
Brilliant.
a question. And if you don't want to answer that one, we
I
can
love
move
it.
on. There wouldn't be the
I love
pressure
it.
there. But that is such a great thing. And when it goes to
Thank you,
Beyond Blue.
Julie.
So,
It's
everything
brilliant.
that you've done, and so everyone, I couldn't recommend this book any higher. And there's some funny
It's-
parts in it.
oh,
There's so much
I was
in
howling.
it. And I honestly, with your love of your
Can I ask
husband.
one quick question I forgot to ask up
Yes,
front?
of course.
Is I fell in love with your therapist, Heather. I think
Oh,
she's amazing.
yes. Yeah.
Can you just describe to the listeners about the scenario of the hotel? I love that whole concept about that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know? I
when
love
you
this.
go through this sort of
Yes.
mental health journey, and I'm a very stubborn, linear, black and white, all or nothing. So I had a breakdown. I went to a mental hospital. I spent 5 weeks. Why am I still sick? A few weeks out, why am I still going through this stuff? And so what I learned is mental health is not a linear journey from A to B. It's not like a leg that you put in a cast and it heals and then you're walking around fine again. And I think that this is an important part leading up to the Sad Hotel. It's an important part of the story for everyone to understand, and that's people with someone in their family or a friend who goes through these issues. It is not a straight line. It's not like, oh, you're better now, hooray, let's carry on. It's circular, it's twisty, it's windy, it's up and down, it's all the directions. But if those twists and turns are sort of heading upwards, then it's okay. But I said to Heather at one point, I'm frightened. My sleep has become disrupted again. I've been having some down times where I can't stop crying. I have these times where I'm struggling to wake up in the morning, or I feel like I've got to go to sleep in the middle of the day. All these very physical manifestations of depression. I'm frightened. And she said, there's nothing to be frightened about. Depression is a natural response. It's a part of grief. It's a part of life. It's a part of stress. You're having a natural stress response. Every human goes through those emotions. You don't have to be frightened that you're heading back down where you were. She said, think of it like checking into a hotel. We check into a hotel and we're there for a few days and then we come home. So I started calling that the sad hotel. And if I get those feelings and those physical sort of responses to something that's happening, I just say, it's okay. I'm checking into the sad hotel. I'm going to have the shitty room service and the horrible shower and the air conditioner that I can't change the temperature on. And in a couple of days, I'm going to check out and I'm going to go home.
To love.
It's a beautiful way of sort of saying it, isn't it, too? And it gives you a bit of hope as well. And wow, well, you certainly have given us a lot
love you,
lot
Heather.
of hope too. I know.
Yes, she's a legend. And it's important to find a therapist that resonates with you. So
vital.
if you think therapy doesn't work, I would say to you, you haven't found the right therapist.
Correct.
Please keep trying.
Well, that's another really good tip too, because sometimes it does take sort of many different therapists as well. So any other sort of while we've got you here, Julie, sort of any other sort of tips that you could be telling anybody who might be listening here who, I don't know, whether we're struggling or anything that is sort of something now that you could sort of say to help sort of someone who might just sort of might need it?
Oh, look, I guess it would just be from what I've gone through in the past few years and actually in all my life, if there's something that's holding you back, whether you feel like you get a bit too anxious to fully engage in things, whether you feel like, you have a mental health condition that holds you back from doing something that you'd really like to do, whether you are questioning whether you might be drinking too much and that might be holding you back from doing that pre-dinner walk or from waking up feeling as vibrant as you want. If you're questioning any of that, seek answers. I'm not here to say, well, you've got depression or anxiety, you need a psychologist or you need to quit drinking or you need to whatever. Just question it. And see where the answers take you. Be brave. Be brave and ask the questions.
I love that.
And maybe try and take a couple of steps down the road of where those answers take you and see what happens.
Oh, bravo.
Be brave.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I really do.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Now, we've got some of our signature questions. Did you want to shoot?
I think after this conversation.
We do share a back fence.
I do.
Nick and I have known many person with mental health, and we've endured it too over the years. So,
not every day is happy.
Well, I think there you go. Is the question?
Yes, yeah.
What makes you happy, Julie?
On the good days, checking in or checking out of the hotel.
When she's checked out of the hotel, of the shitty hotel,
7-star hotel,
with the shitty food. I love that. So good. Love it. Love that image.
My granddaughter makes me happy.
Oh, we wear the same. I've got sons,
Delilah.
And I've just had a granddaughter.
Oh, no. Oh my God!
So give me a high five.
Yeah, high five, Annie.
So
she's
good.
I can't be sad around her. She is joy embodied, and she makes me happy, and she brings me back to the important things, which is leaves falling on the ground and whether the pool is warm enough to swim in and yummy things to eat and just lying on the floor doing a puzzle. She embodies all the right things, and time with her is my number one priority.
That is really beautiful. Just saying it's saying like the simple things are the huge things, and what joy is that, Julie. Now, if you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, who would it be and why?
Well, it would be them. It would be my son and his partner and that little girl. Wow. And I'd put a great big door in that back fence and I'd leave it open all the time. And we'd share dogs and we'd share yards and we'd share dinner every single night instead of only a few times a week.
How beautiful.
That's beautiful. Well, I don't think they're too far away, are they?
So beautiful.
Of course they're going to be near you with all your cooking and love and that is so beautiful. Oh, wow. That is great. Any advice for a 20-year-old Julie?
My 20-year-old self, look, I would have to say that any advice given to a 20-year-old is wasted because they never listen to anyone. Certainly not to a 54-year-old.
That's brilliant.
That was. I love the honesty around that one. It was perfect.
If I could say something that would stick, I would say just unclench a little bit, honey. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's been kind to yourself.
Honestly, Julie, by sharing your stories, you're saving lives. And on behalf of so many people, I just wanted to say thank you. Truly, thank you. I really mean that from my heart.
Yep.
Honest to God.
We do. We're
Just thank you.
We're honoured to have you on, and for everybody here. And you're not alone. We'll have all the details on our show notes too. Also, so with the big blue table, with it all where you
I'm
can
going
get
to do it.
where you can get. Yeah, we're going to do it definitely. Well,
100%.
we like the thing
Serious.
is, what's going to happen when Di does it too? The musical instruments.
I'm going to
come
do the
out.
poached
This one,
pear
she's-
with a stuck spoon.
You're going to bring the
I'm going to do
kangaroo hoppy.
level
A
diva.
kangaroo hops, and away we go.
Was it lemon diva cakes? I think so.
I
I'm
love
gonna do
the
the
name.
Oh,
cupcakes.
lovely.
Yeah, for sure.
Those ones
We're
too.
obsessed.
So we'll have all the notes there, and on your book, you must go and get it as well too. So everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for and share this one with sort of someone who may need it as well, or it's for everybody
It
too.
is.
So don't forget also to rate and review. We're on YouTube, so you can actually watch this and see Julie and us and through the ups and downs of this one too. Now we like the ratings. Now Di has her own rating system. I don't know whether you know this, Julie, but so we've got Julie Goodwin at our back fence today, which is
You know
pretty
what's
special.
interesting is that Julie will never know how many people she has helped ultimately. So I'm going to say hundreds of thousands out of 5.
Yahoo! That's
your
what you
rating.
get from us. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be
I
back
mean
in
that,
your ears
Julie.
next week.
Yeah.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.